So, how do certain trucking companies take advantage of truck drivers and potentially steal from you? Well, one of the ways that they're doing this, in my opinion, involves the B2 visa program. Now, before we get into this, I do want to take the time to discuss the growing discourse in the trucking industry surrounding foreign nationals. Now, there's been debate about foreign truck drivers in this industry, bringing down rates, applying downward pressure to trucking wages, and potentially causing unsafe conditions for all of us in the roadways.
He's showing belief with his third world thinking he ain't done shit wrong. You understand? Hit and run in a commercial vehicle is a fucking felony.
But then from the English proficiency part, there's been a lot of folks that from the previous administration that have came over that shouldn't have been over, but then they got issued, CDLs and those things, right? And so we need those things to, and the enforcement hasn't been there, right? I mean, we all know law and order was not there in the last 4 or 5 years, right?
As a result, we have states like Arkansas and Oklahoma propose legislation to potentially ban foreign truck drivers from operating in those states. Now, as for Arkansas, that legislation has fallen through, and instead, truck drivers that have been discovered to not communicate effectively in English will instead incur hefty fines. Now, as for the state of Oklahoma, they're pushing to ban B1 and B2 truck drivers. Now, time will tell if this legislation will pass or potentially fall through. Now, in my opinion, I think that the B2 visa program, at least for truck drivers, should just be eliminated altogether. And I'll get to the reasons why in this video. Now, before we get into that, I do want to say this. I do have compassion for people. I think that if people are lucky enough to come here in the United States to have a shot at the American dream, then they should definitely take full advantage of it. But the issue with this B2 visa program is that you're not required to actually know how to effectively communicate in English. And because of that, I feel that certain fly-by-night carriers, they can take advantage of this and take advantage of unsuspecting truck drivers that may be good faith individuals, and they can use them, dangle citizenship over them, because you can potentially use this program to, eventually become a citizen. They can use that to your advantage to exploit you. So the Department of Homeland Security opened up 65,000 B2 visas for foreign truck drivers, and carriers can use this to sponsor truck drivers from about 80 countries from around the world. But in order to take advantage of this program, these carriers must demonstrate that there is a need for these truck drivers, that there is in fact a trucking shortage. So there's a narrative out there that there is supposedly a shortage of American truck drivers. And because of that shortage, wages have in fact increased for American truck drivers. And apparently because of those wage increases, the costs are passed on to the consumers. So the consumers receive an increase in their goods at the grocery store. So the program aims to help bridge the labor shortage gap or whatever with foreign nationals from over 80 countries from around the world. And you can see these countries from your screen. Now, it's worth noting this. Now, the most infamous incident involving Solomon Whitakill Araya, the truck driver that unalived 5 people in Austin, Texas. He is actually from Eritrea, Ethiopia. He's from East Africa, and on that list that you see on your screen, you don't see that country on this list. If he were a if he were a B2 visa recipient, I don't see this program, representing him if he's from that country. But somehow he was able to get a non-domicile CDL with a fake birthday on it. And also, as for wage increases, as far as I'm concerned, there has not been a wage increase since the 1970s, relative to the rate of inflation, of course. So in my opinion, I think that there is potentially something sinister going on here with this B2 visa program. I think that certain carriers, the fly-by-night carriers, they're abusing this program for nefarious reasons. Once again, this program makes it so you're not necessarily required to be able to communicate effectively, read, write, understand English. So because of that, carriers can actually take advantage and exploit these truck drivers. And like I said, I get that there's discourse out there when it comes to foreign truck drivers, they shouldn't be here, they should be deported. But the issue is the system itself. The system itself has to go. It has to be revised. It needs to, be eliminated altogether. Because if these truck drivers can't speak English, how can they communicate if their equipment is unsafe? For example, you guys recall that incident with the truck driver from Colorado that was initially sentenced to 110 years in prison for unaliving 4 people as a result of his brakes going bad? Well, he reported to his company that his brakes were not good, they were defective, and there are records of this, okay? But the company still made him operate the unsafe equipment. Now, it was discovered that truck driver could not speak English very well. He needed interpreters during his trial. So maybe, just maybe, because there was a language barrier between him and his company, he couldn't, effectively speak up about this to the proper authorities. And because these people are sponsored by these carriers, if they were to retaliate, then they may face deportation. They have that to deal with. So unfortunately, they may be put in impossible situations to run dangerous equipment. And that's why the program just needs to go all together. And these companies need to face heavy sanctions. Ultimately, these companies are very greedy. If they can save money by all costs, by any means necessary, they will do that to the detriment of their bottom line. Now, as a result of that incident in Colorado, the truck driver was at first expected to be in prison for 110 years, but the governor commuted his sentence to 10 years instead. Now, unfortunately, if there was another incident, and they happen all the time, of, a really, really bad accident resulting in a fatality, the driver is ultimately the fall guy, but you never, ever hear what happens with the carrier. And potentially, they probably could just dissolve and then resurface as another carrier due to, deregulation making that possible.
Bezos ceased operations 6 months after the accident, but the company's owner now runs another trucking company. Federal regulators gave Simon Express an unsatisfactory safety rating after the accident. The company also shut down, and its owner also runs another trucking company.
What?
So yeah, I don't think that deporting all the foreign truck drivers would, potentially end this issue. I think that you just need to fix the system all together and discourage these carriers from ever, participating in these fraudulent activities. Because as long as this B2 visa program is still active, these carriers can, basically finesse the system and claim that there is a shortage of American truck drivers. And here's how they do it. Now, you guys know how there are veteran truck drivers that have like 10, 20, 30 years of trucking experience, and for whatever reason, they need to take a break from trucking. Well, if they decide to come back for any length of time, they face rejection from these carriers, right? Because they don't have recent experience, and the excuse is, oh, it's for insurance purposes. Meanwhile, you have this B2 visa program where you can just, show that, hey, we don't have enough, American truck drivers to fill these positions, even though we reject the veteran truck drivers that have been trucking for 10, 20, 30 years. We can't hire them, but instead we can import truck drivers from 80 countries from all over the world to drive our trucks, and somehow, some way, that doesn't drive up the insurance costs. It's just an excuse, a BS excuse, in my opinion. I just think it's all done by design to displace and discourage American truck drivers. And as automation increases, I expect there to be more displaced and discouraged truck drivers, which is a tragedy, in my opinion. What are we supposed to do? Because experts estimate that at least 40% of all jobs are expected to be replaced by automation. So are we supposed to go back to school? You expect truck drivers that have been in this industry for 10, 20, 30 years all of a sudden go back to school, learn a new skill to participate in this AI economy? But hey, I think that's a great topic for the next video. And if you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, comment, rate, share, and subscribe. I'm Tasia Woods, and I will see you next time.